this year. So this session will be about dashboards and workspace management in Power BI. So let's get started right away. For those who don't know me, I'm Thimantha Vidanagamage. I love working with Microsoft Data Platform technologies such as Microsoft Power BI, Azure Analytics Services, and Azure Data Factory. The most important thing out of all the details that you see in the screen right now is my Twitter handle at Thimantha. So please follow me on Twitter at Thimantha. So just a bit of recap in terms of what we have been working on during the last few sessions. So the first session was entirely about how do you build a very basic data model with reference to a data source in Power BI. Then the second session was about advancing that data model with the use of Power BI data flows and how we should manage the data model with Power BI data flows. And the third session was about data visualizations in reports in Power BI, which was a very basic and simple version. And the fourth session was an advanced version of it, where I covered some a bit of advanced features that are essential in Power BI reporting. So those are the four sessions that we had throughout this year. And the next session, the session that we'll be having today is will entirely focus on dashboard development and also workspace management, which is also essential for Power BI developers or even Power BI business users to know. So that's basically the main goal of today. So let's get started. Moving into the agenda. So as I told you before, today we'll be discussing about dashboards and workspace management. So let's simply get started with dashboards. Moving into dashboards, dashboards provide a high-level view of data. Simply, you can say it as a summary of data. It's ideally static and there is no interaction involved in dashboards. And also it's important to keep in mind that in Power BI, dashboards and reports are not the same. So these are two different components in Power BI. But if you look at other BI tools such as Tableau, as far as I know, the report itself is a dashboard, but in Power BI, dashboards and reports are two different concepts. So basically, reports provide you a detailed view of the data while allowing you visual interactions and all that. But when it comes to dashboards, it's just a high-level static view of the data, specifically targeted for groups such as the high-level management. So so when I say high-level management, it does not it's not always used for that. It's used for any level of business users. It's used between any level of business users as well. But that's just an example. It's just a very high-level view or summarized view of your data in a very static way. Right. So that's just a bit of introduction in terms of dashboards. So let's quickly get started and look at a demo. Look into a demo in dashboards. Right. Going ahead. So what I would do is I would be accessing the workspace that I have been working with to build all these components. So if you are a first timer or if you are someone who is looking at these training sessions for the first time, kindly refer to the previous training sessions. I have developed each and every component that you see in the screen right now, which is the data model, the data flow, the report and all that. So please make sure that you refer to those sessions and get back to this session. If not, it would be a bit of confusing for you guys. So please do that before heading into this session. Right. Um, by saying that, let's quickly see how we can create a dashboard. So this is the workspace that I've been working with throughout this series of training sessions. So how do you create a dashboard is you go ahead and click on create. You click on the new icon that you see, a new option that you see right at the top of your workspace. So how you do that is simply access your workspace, and on the top you would see an icon called new with a plus icon. Just click on that, and if you scroll yourself downwards down, you should be able to see an option called dashboard, right? So just click on the dashboard option, and uh, and afterwards we'll have to provide a name for our dashboard. So in this case, I would just simply call it sales summary. So I had provided a name for my dashboard, and next I would click on the create button that I see right at the bottom, and this would create my blank dashboard. So why is it blank? Because we haven't brought any content to this dashboard yet. So how do you bring content to this dashboard? So usually with dashboards, how you bring in content is with reference to the reports. You refer into the specific report, and you decide which visuals that you want to see in the dashboard, and you basically pin those visuals back into the dashboard, right? So with Power BI dashboards, you cannot create visuals from scratch. You have to always refer a visual that you created in your Power BI reports, right? So how you do that is you basically navigate yourself into the Power BI report that you want to refer to in order to create a dashboard. So that's the sales report in this case, which we developed in the previous 2 training sessions. So this is my sales report. So I think you can remember that we created a sales overview and a sales detail view in this, a very simple report just to take you through the process in terms of how you should develop a report. So these are the 2 pages, and this is the report that we developed. So in this report, I have decided personally that I want to have the visual sales breakdown by customer and sales breakdown by product in my dashboard, right? So what I do is I just go and hover over the specific visual, in this case sales breakdown by customer, and I click on the pin visual icon. And what I do is it asks you to select an existing dashboard or create a new dashboard in order to pin this visual to. So in this case, I had already created a dashboard, so I would just pin that this visual into the sales summary dashboard that I created. So if you haven't created a dashboard, you can simply head into here and click on new dashboard and provide a dashboard name and just pin it as well, and it would create a new dashboard and pin it for you. So in this case, I had created a dashboard, so I don't want to create a new dashboard yet again. So I would just use the existing dashboard and click on pin. Right. So after pinning the specific visual, it asks you the options. It just provides you a notification. It just disappeared away, but it just provides you a notification saying that this particular visual is pinned, and whether you want to navigate yourself to that particular dashboard, or whether you want to create a mobile layout. So let's not talk about mobile layouts in this session. That's a whole new, a different way of thinking in terms of UI and how things should be going. So I would keep that aside probably for another session. But during this session, what I would do is I would just navigate myself to the sales summary dashboard that I created and show you this particular visual that we append. So what we do is we literally do the same thing for the other visual that we want to pin in. We want to see in our dashboard as well. So that is sales breakdown by product. So I just navigate over myself once again to sales breakdown by product, click on the pin visual icon, and once again I would just select the existing dashboard and click on sales summary. So if I just navigate myself once again to the sales summary report dashboard, you should be able to see both my visuals in the dashboard right now, right? So that's very simple and straightforward. The important thing that you need to keep in mind here is that you cannot create visuals from scratch in Power BI dashboards. You can only refer visuals from your respective reports into your Power BI dashboard. So that's what we just did, and you can see the effect of that in this screen right now. And next thing, I just want to provide an appropriate title for this page so that it looks a bit more compelling. So I would just click on, so how I do that. And also something important for you to know is that when you click on each visual from the Power BI dashboard, when you click on each visual, you will be headed down to the respective report that the specific visual is referring to, right? So in this case, so sales breakdown by customer, if I just click on this, it would just take me to the report where sales breakdown by customer came from. And that is basically that. And you can remember in here, as you can see, there is no visual interactions. It's just a very static report. So that's just a bit of that. And each of these are called tiles, right? Sorry about that. So if you just, each of these are called tiles, right? What you creating dashboards are called tiles. So these tiles represent a specific type of content, a specific content that is being used, that is existing in Power BI dashboard. So in this case, this is just sales breakdown by customer visual is referring to one tile, and sales breakdown by product visual is referring to another style. So if you just look at the options in each of these styles, so you can just pin this style somewhere else as well. You can view insights of this, or you can go to the report. You can copy this visual as an image. You can add comments. You can chat in Teams about this as well, which is the Teams collaboration. You can do an entire session about the Teams collaboration. That's a whole new topic. So that Power BI had worked on during this year, I guess, as far as I know. So that's a really nice thing to see, have a nice thing to know as well. So yeah, that's that. And also you can open your visual in focus mode, which means it would entirely show you a visual in a specific focus mode, and you can simply just filter out with the use of the filter, with the use of the filter panes. For instance, I just want to filter out, some specific customers, and it would just pop up in the screen with some interaction. But keep in mind that this is in focus mode, and you cannot do this interaction with the dashboard by default. So if you exit focus mode, it would just simply wipe away, as you can see in the screen right now. So that's a bit of that. Next thing I want to do is I want to add a tile with a heading for this dashboard, so it looks a bit more compelling. So I will click on add a tile option. And in the add a tile option, what I want to do is add text, right? So to add text, what I want to do is click on the text box option, right? When I click on the text box, all I need to do is click on the next option. And what I need to provide is a respective name. Display a respective name for my text box. So in this case, I would just call it say summary. And it would appear, sorry about that. I would get back to it once again, text box next, and I would just type out say a summary the way I want to say it. And I would provide a better font size in this case. So I would provide around 40, I guess. Yeah, that should be okay. And maybe I would just make this a bit bold to make it look a bit compelling. And I would click on the apply option, and that created my text, right? So it's right at the bottom. So how do you put this right into the top? All you need to do is just drag it and drop it right into the top. And you can adjust it as per your preference as well. And maybe I just want to center this as well. It doesn't look good. So I would go to edit details, and just you can see the options that you can add a title for this text box as well, if it's required. So in this case, it's not really required because that's basically giving a title. Let me just show you that and see how that works. So basically, you can see the effect of that right behind the screen, right? So this is a title. Oh, sorry. And this is a subtitle. So this is not specifically essential for me, right? Test title and test subtitle, because I just in this case, why I don't want it is because I just want to make sure I want to edit my text. If you provide a title or subtitle, you specifically can't customize your text or make it bold or stuff like that. But if you provide it to the content, you can do that. So in this case, I just don't want that, a subtitle and a title. So I would so how I change that is I just click on the ellipsis saying more options right next to the text, and I click on the edit details option, and I would just simply select the option to not to display title and subtitle. Right, that's that. And I just want to center this as well because I think that looks better. And it's centered out. That is that. And just want to make sure that it aligns well as well, so that there wouldn't be any problems here. And align, all you need to do to align is just drag and drop your visuals. It's very simple, not overly complicated. So it's really simple. Just click on the visual and just drag and drop wherever you want it to go. And that's that. And the next thing I want to do is I just want to provide a title and subtitle for these visuals, because I think that's essential to visuals, these visuals. So how you do that is just click on the ellipsis that I clicked previously under each tile, tile visual. So in this case, the more options ellipses right under the sales breakdown by customer and click on the edit details option. And I just want to make sure that I customize this particular title and subtitle a bit. So you can see sales breakdown by customer is right in one text. So I just want to cut the option, cut that the text by customer and just paste it over in right here as a subtitle so that it looks a bit more clearer for the audience, for whoever who is consuming this report. That's that, and you can provide a URL to navigate when you click on the visual as well. I think, as far as I know, that's what it leads to from this, and you can also so you can also provide the last refresh time for this visual so that it's a lot more clearer to the audience in terms of when was this last refresh and so on. So that's that for you, and I just did that, and I will not be setting up a custom link here because I just when you click on the visual, because I want my business users or end users to get themselves into the right into the report when they click on a specific visual. So I don't want them to go anywhere else with the use of a custom link. So I'm not using that, and I will click on apply. And let me do the same for this particular visual as well. And edit details by product. And display last refresh time. And not going to set a custom link again. So once again, what the custom link does is, so I think I showed you previously that when you click on a specific visual from the Power BI dashboard, it heads you right into the respective report that the dashboard report that the specific visual is referring to, right? So what you can do with a custom link is rather than directing the user into the specific report, you can direct the user anywhere else that you want the user to be directed. But in this case, I don't want to do that. So I would not set a custom link and I would click on the apply option. Right, that concludes my dashboard. So that's really it. And that's really simple, as you can see in the screen right now. That heads into the second topic of discussion for today, which is a topic that we'll be talking about today, which is the workspaces, right? So workspaces are they used to share and collaborate the developed Power BI components with others. So others in the sense, this is specifically going to be your colleagues who engage in various tasks with you. You are probably not going to share this with a third party. So that's basically that. Basically, Power BI workspaces are used for you to collaborate with your colleagues and to work on specific tasks related to Power BI. It could be a data consumption task, a consumption task, or development task, or it could be anything as such. So that's that. And there are two types of workspaces. These are personal workspaces, which are also known as My Workspace, and you have the workspaces itself. So the My Workspace or the personal workspace is free, and it is similar to a personal sandbox or a work area for yourself, which means that the outsiders or any of your colleagues or anyone else will not have access to that environment. It's just your personal environment for you to do development and just to publish into that and just to keep it. So in this case, if you are a Power BI business user, you are probably not going to see you have an empty personal workspace or an empty My Workspace, because you are probably not going to do any development and you are not going to publish, right? So that's a bit of that for you. And also these Power BI workspaces are free. So simply Power BI My Workspaces are free. Um, so which means the personal workspaces are free, which means that there is no any charge for it. So if you are a Power BI free user, you can simply just go into that. You can simply publish your work into that and just play around with it. But still, there are a few restrictions, and let's look at those restrictions. Sorry about that. Let's look at those restrictions right in the demo itself. So let's keep it to that. And when it comes to workspaces itself, so compared to personal workspaces or my workspace, uh, uh, workspaces are not free, and you would at least need a Power BI Pro license to access, to consume or manage workspaces with the use of, sorry about that, with the use of uh, uh, with the use of Power BI, with the use of Power BI, manage workspaces with the use of Power BI. So and also something to keep in mind is that uh, what the usual process, how things work is that Power BI developers engage in their respective development, and they would provide a solution, and they would publish that solution to a respective workspace, and after publishing the solution to the respective workspace, uh, that would be consumed by the business users for their data-driven decision making. So that's a bit of how that works. So let's quickly head ourselves into the demo and see how does that look and what you need to consider in that. So first thing I would do is, even though it looks messy, let me just show you a bit of my personal workspace. So how you access my personal workspace is the My Workspace option you see right at the top of the screen, right? You simply navigate yourself to Workspaces, and right at the top of the screen, you can see an option called My Workspace. So just click on that, and you should be able to see the My Workspace. You should be able to see My Workspace in the screen right now. As you can see, it's a bit messy, so I don't even remember half of the things that I have done. You can see some of them are 2018, 2019, and just a few of them in 2021. So, just not going to a bit of detail in that, but this is just a bit of how my personal workspace looks like. And in terms of restrictions, you can see that I cannot create data flows with the use of Power BI, my personal or my workspace, right? That option is not available right here. That's a bit of that. And all the other options seem to be available in personal workspaces. I haven't, the only key difference as a developer that I notice in the personal workspace with the development I engage in is just missing data flows. You don't have data flows in my workspace, so that's bit of troubling if you are someone who wants to do, if you are a free user and if you want to do some R&D around Power BI data flows. So that's just a bit of the personal workspace, and next I would just show you how to create this kind of a workspace, right? How to create a pro license workspace. So I'm sorry, how to create a regular workspace, which is not a personal workspace. And also something to keep in mind is that personal workspace or my workspaces cannot be created in any way, right? It is attached to your account, attached to your respective business account by default, and it is only accessible for yourself. So that's a bit of that. And quickly, let's see how we can create a regular workspace which you can provide access to other people and engage in collaboration with your respective colleagues, right? So let's quickly have a look at that. How you do that is just click on the Workspaces option once again, and you should see a big yellow color icon right on the top or right at the bottom of the screen called Create a Workspace. So click on the Create a Workspace option, and all you need to do is provide a respective name for your workspace. In this case, I would provide my name as BI Training Bangladesh Test. I would delete that immediately. So if you want, you can provide a description as well. In this case, I'm not going to get into that level. So I would just click on save, and you should be able to see my workspace. You should be directed, and you should see the created workspace. So since I have a pro license, I can create and manage this kind of a workspace by adding users as well. But if you are a free user, you don't have this privilege. So a free user can only play around with the My Workspace option that I just showed you previously. So I have my brand new workspace right here, and what I want to do now is I would just show you how to provide access to this kind of a workspace, right? So how I do that is I would just click on the access option. So just to recap, I had just created a workspace right here calling that Power BI Training Bangladesh Test, which is a brand new empty workspace. And I just want to make sure that I collaborate or I share this workspace with some of my colleagues so that they can engage in this workspace, they can do their development, and they can publish it through here, and they can consume their reports as well. So their dashboards as well. So let me just provide access to just a few of them just to show you around. So in terms of access, there are also types of access here from admin to viewer. So what admin does is it provides full privilege to this kind of a workspace. And what viewer does is it just provides the option to consume reports or consume the workspace in if you say it the right way. So that's what the viewer option provides you, and the member and the contributor option lies at lies in between. So let me just quickly see if I can just provide you a detailed comparison of this if you really want. So if you just look at the Power BI access, so this is that. So this is the Power BI documentation, and this is just a very detailed view in terms of what are the access privileges that each of the roles have. So in this case, as I told, admin has all these privileges. All the, as you can see, all ticks, which means that they simply can do anything with the workspace, and the viewer can be used to consume the workspace, which is to as you can see right here, and the contributor and member lies in between. So you can have a detailed view of this in the Power BI documentation. Just Googling Power BI roles, and you should be roles in Power BI roles in workspaces, and you should be able to see this documentation and get a detailed understanding of this. So due to the time limitation, I would not be taking you through each of this. So yeah, you can just get yourself into this and see what are the each and every privileges that each and every roles have. So that's a bit of that. and I will close that right down and get back to my workspace. And I just want to make sure that I provide some member access to one of my colleagues here. I'm sorry, I just want to provide an viewer access to one of my colleagues just to look at the reports here. So I would just add that colleague here and basically search his or her name, and it should appear in the options that are under your company tenant and this organization tenant, and just add the specific colleague or the specific user and just click on add. And now this particular colleague or this particular user has the read access to this particular workspace, right? So that's just a bit of that. And just a very basic and a high level view in terms of how you can manage a workspace, in terms of how you can create it and how you can work on it. And that's basically a very high level view of the workspace. So let's quickly head back into my previous workspace that I had engaged in all the development with. So that is this particular workspace that you're seeing in the screen right now. So here I would just show you a bit around, so you can see that there is you can see the components, the Power BI reports in blue, the dashboards in a lighter blue, I would say, and the data flows in a yellow color icon, a gold color icon, I guess, and the data model or the Power BI data set in the orange color icon. So you can, as I think I told you this to you guys previously as well. So if you create a Power BI data model in Power BI desktop, and if you publish it right into your workspace, a respective workspace, you can see a report created to this data model, respective data model as well, most of the time. So you will not need that. You will only need the Power BI data model, which is with the orange color icon. So you don't need this report or the Power BI data model with the blue color icon. So I would just click on the ellipsis that I see right in front of the data model report, and I will just delete that. And you have the rest of the Power BI components right now. And you can also just filter out the respective components if you want. You can filter out the data set, you can filter out the report, you can filter out the data flow, and you can filter out the dashboard. So that's just a bit of that. And also there are some premium features in this Power BI workspaces as well. Unfortunately, I don't have premium to take you through this process. One of such really exciting and really effective, I would say, features would be the create a pipeline feature. So what that feature does is basically during the actual Power BI development, you have, as with all the other developments, we have environments we have a specific environment workspace for development and a specific workspace for production and a specific workspace for UAT or QA, UAT or QA. So in that case, you don't have to publish your reports individually to each of those workspaces after development. By creating a pipeline, you can always migrate whatever the changes that you do in development into UAT or production as per your preference, and you can engage with that with this create a pipeline option. Only problem is that you would need the premium capacity to go ahead with that. And you can see in Power BI, you can see some classifications of these components further as well. You can see content. So in content, you would see the dashboards and the reports. and data sets plus data flows through the data sets and data flows as you see in this screen right now. And if I look at the new option, you can see you can create various types of components in Power BI for the components. So one such component that we did not cover is paginated report, which is pretty identical to SSRS reports if you had worked on them. The only thing is that you would need premium capacity once again to have a paginated report. So that's why I did not cover that because it's not something that's possible, that's not accessible for all the users, and it wouldn't provide the best for you even if I do cover that. So I just left that out, but maybe in a future session we can have a look at that as well. So then another option is exciting, and another really nice feature is this streaming dataset. It has been there for a very long time, and it just basically you can have streaming datasets in your Power BI workspace, and you can have your respective reports in accordance to the streaming datasets. So the streaming option is available as well. Once again, I did not cover that. I just used a very fixed data set so that you can understand the concepts and everything as well. So that's just a bit of that. And in terms of Power BI, and yeah, and if you just head back into the settings in the workspace, you can see the previous settings that I showed you. So you in this case, it's a pro license, so premium per user is another possibility. So these are basically the licenses that you can have your workspace in this workspace with. By default, if you have a pro license, it's going to be a pro license. Then you have the premium per user, premium per capacity, and embedded licenses. So that's just a bit of to think about in terms of business requirements. And then you have Azure connections in terms of, so what you can do in here is, as far as I know, with whatever the workspaces that you create, the components of those workspaces are saved in an internal Azure data lake, as far as I know. So what you can do in here is, I think you have the option to create into your own Azure data lake and just have your components there as well. So that's basically another level. You will need to get access to your IT and get a respective admin access, and that's a absolutely different process that is beyond a very basic user. So that's a bit of that, and I think I just covered everything in the workspace. And there is another option called the create an app option. So what that would do is it would create a really nice app for your end users to interact with. So that's a really that's another possibility, and maybe I would cover that with the recap session I would be doing after this as an additional bonus. So that's a bit of that, and that kind of concludes my session for today, and I hope you guys got something out of this session. And I just tried my level best to provide you guys with this. I just tried my level best to provide you guys the best with the 5 training sessions I had with you guys. So I hope you guys got something out of it. So if you have any questions, or if there is something that you want me, if there is some kind of improvement that you want me to do, if there is something that you want me to talk about, so please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to arrange that for you. And I'm more than happy to be flexible in any way. So, and also make sure to provide some session feedback for me as well so that I can improve my sessions further and provide a better contribution to you guys. So that concludes my session for today. Thank you very much, Azan. I hope this session uh, was useful enough for the community. So yeah, back to you, Azan. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. It was a nice session, and we expect that it will be helpful for the audience. And now we are going to move towards the next session. Deepthi is there. Hello, Deepthi.
Hello, Ashan. How are you?
I am fine. And you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for
I
having
think
me today.
thank you very much. I think you are a little bit tired as you have another session.
I just had my session like 15 minutes ago.
Okay, it's quite difficult to manage.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm so used to it.
Oh, thank you very much. Please carry on your session.
Sure, sure. Do you want me to share my screen? Okay. Can you see my screen in the presentation mode?
Yeah, Deepthi, we can.
Okay. So whenever you say go ahead, and I'll just start.
Sure, you can start.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time for attending this user group meeting today. I know it's back-to-back sessions for you, and on Saturday you, instead of taking rest and taking rest and sleeping, just you were there here to listen and then learn from the content what speakers are trying to share with you. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ashan, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I think this is my second time speaking for Bangladesh user group.
Right.
I'm so happy to be here. So today I would like to speak on topic DBA in the cloud. So basically, if you are a on-prem DBA, if you are trying to move to cloud, but you do not know anything about Azure, um, because especially we are talking about Azure DBA today in this session. Like if you are not familiar anything about Azure, or if you already know about Azure, if you are working on Azure environment, but if you want to brush up your skills, um, to know more about what kind of responsibilities a DBA have to play once we move to Azure, this session is right for you. So hopefully you'll like it. Um, Stick around because I would like to provide the resources that you need to go ahead and start taking your journey to the next level. Along with all the resources you need, as well as there are some couple of resources where you can go ahead and take the certifications for free. So I'll be also providing those resources for you. I'm not going to spend much of time in on this slide, but if you'd like to contact me at DBA Nuggets is my user ID and dbanuggets.com is my website where I will be usually blogging about SQL Server and Azure. If you'd like to know more about it, please visit my website and you can contact me on LinkedIn as well, Deepthi Goguri. So before beginning, like 6 months ago or 7 months ago, one Monday, it's not so fun day to me. The reason why I'm saying that is because I'm an on-prem DBA. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. Like every week, I do the same things over and over and over again, checking for the agent jobs, setting up always on, taking care of my databases. The regular DBA job, on-prem DBA job. I'm so comfortable. I had my cup of coffee on one Monday morning 7 months ago, and then we had a meeting that was set up a couple of days ago, but there was nothing mentioned in the body part of the email. So they just said like future of our company in coming 6 months. So I do not know what they are going to talk about, so I just thought it's like something else. And then I just went ahead with other DBAs into the meeting room where I saw many other managers and then the higher department people coming from the different departments. So I don't know what's going on until the management has told us that they decided to move to the cloud in the coming 6 months, at least 50% of the servers. As we have like hundreds of servers, I was like, once I listened to that, once they said that, I was in this mode. I was completely in the panic mode. I do not know if they saw that in my face, but I was completely in a panic mode. Once I came to my cube, I did not work that day because I was like overthinking stuff like, okay, so they are planning to move to Azure. So will they hire a new DBA who already know Azure and who can take their on-prem servers to Azure? Or how does that go? Because I have no idea what Azure is. So will I lose my job? Because once we move to Azure, like what are my responsibilities once I move to Azure? Because everybody is talking that Microsoft is going to take care of everything. So I did not work that day, and I did not came back into my original state of mind until couple of other weeks. I spent lot of hours and weeks of overthinking process, overthinking if I have to change my career completely from just leaving my DBA job, because everybody outside, without providing certain resources, the valid resources, they keep talking like, hey, once we move to Azure, DBA jobs are going to go away. We do not need anymore. So I was like in a panic mode. I did so much of research. Half of the resources said, you better go ahead and search on another job because Microsoft is going to take care. And once you move to Azure, there are little things that you have to do. But apart from that, if there are 50 DBAs, they only need 2 DBAs once you move to Azure. So definitely I'm in a panic mode. But the other resources said like, no, like you still you still are going to be needed. But any of these resources, like whom do I trust, right? Half of them says that and half of them says this, and this is my life, this is my career. So I have to take proper steps, um, knowing that the resources are valid. So I thought, instead of me being focusing on negative stuff and thinking about too much, why not I spend the same energy in learning Azure? If I learn Azure, then I don't have to panic. At least I can stay until the on-prem databases will be moved to Azure, because as a DBA, I'm responsible to plan the process and take the servers and databases to Azure. Maybe I'll figure it out once I start learning Azure. That's where I started learning Azure, and it's been like 3 to 4 months I started learning. I'm not an expert at this thing, but I started learning, and I while reading the Microsoft Docs, I found the resources and what are our responsibilities as a DBA once we move to cloud. I found it myself because I know what I will do on prem. So I compared them with what the resources and what are the responsibilities that I do in Azure. I think I got the point of Cloud DBA. So I thought there might be several other on-prem DBAs thinking exactly the same. So why not I put this thing together so that I can assure them that we are still going to be needed by the company, even though we move to Azure. And the learning curve will be definitely more. You have to learn it because as technology improves in any field, film field, technology field, any field that you see, musical field, as they improve the technology, as they release new instruments, definitely the musicians or technologists like us, DBAs, developers, everybody should be coping with the technology. We need to learn continuously. We are in that space, so definitely there is a learning curve. But once if you see everything from the top view, it is definitely overwhelming. So if you are a DBA, start with the basic of like Azure fundamentals, go from there one step at a time, take the certifications because they are very useful. I'm going to talk about that in the coming slides. So you do not have to panic, right? Just like me, you do not have to panic. As an overview, we are going to see uh, what are the responsibilities of the Cloud DBA, Azure deployment options we have, and what are the purchasing tiers, service tiers, compute tiers, because as a DBA, it is very crucial for you to know all of these because you are responsible to provide all of the information even before moving to the cloud. You are going to um, provide this information to your management of how much it might cost for them to move to Azure, because money matters, right? So we are going to talk about that, and we are also going to talk about the role-based access control. What are the users and what are the roles that we have? How can we provide the roles, permissions to other users? And I will also provide a couple of tools of migration you need and the other resources so that you can go ahead and get started with Azure. But we have demo part here where we are going to see how to create the virtual network and then provide the virtual machine on that particular network. Once you create the virtual machine, let's go ahead and create the Azure SQL database and connect the database by using your virtual machine. So it's all linked up to each other, but let's see from the beginning, right? If you do not know anything about Azure, this is this is the right path. You will, by the end of this session, you will definitely have an idea so that you can go ahead and look at the further steps. So on-prem DBAs, get ready to become a Cloud DBA. Cloud DBA is definitely going to be expanded. Like if you are an on-prem DBA, your roles are going to be expanded, because once we move to Azure, there are certain things that you have to learn, like private link. What is the private link? Those kind of new things um, that you are not familiar when you are on-prem. Those kind of things you are going to learn. But wait, Microsoft is going to take care of all of the things, right? No, that's not correct. Microsoft is going to take care of certain responsibilities. Like if you move to the Azure, the patching, the upgrades, like database upgrades, right? If you have Azure SQL database, you do not have to upgrade that anymore because it's versionless. So you do not have to worry about those database upgrades, but that doesn't take away our jobs, because there are only certain responsibilities that they take, but the other responsibilities like giving the permissions to the users um, and then making sure our database is always online, because once you're on a cloud doesn't mean that it won't cause any issues. Definitely applications doesn't connect. Sometimes they might be downtime. You need to make sure you are available to help the users to make sure they are up and running again. Backups are taken care by Microsoft, but even if you think when you are on-prem, those jobs are already taken care by the third-party tools. If you remember, most of the companies use third-party tools. So anyway, you're not bothering about those things. Those things are taken care by Microsoft. The patching, the boring patching in my company, in my previous company, especially for the patching, they had a guy who can only patch the SQL servers. That's his job, right? He will just send us the cumulative updates, the number of the update. We will just say confirm. We will read it and say, okay, confirm, go ahead and do it. And he's the one who will do it. Anyway, we are not going to do it. So those are the things that are the boring tasks kind of things. Those are the things that are taken care by Microsoft, but still there are crucial things that the DBA, as a DBA, we are going to do them. And existing responsibilities, definitely they are needed once you move to Azure as well, but new skills, as we are moving to the complete new environment, the Azure portal looks different, and where to go, where to click, what to do, and how to deploy many of the virtual machines at the same time, because everything we do it in the scale, right? We don't do one step at a time when we are moving to Azure. So we might be doing bulk operations at the same time. So how we can do that? So those kind of things we are still needed. We are the ones who are going to do that. Let's talk about the deployment options as an overview. So we have two services that are provided by the Microsoft: infrastructure as a service and the platform as a service. Under the infrastructure as a service, we have SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. Under the platform as a service, we have SQL Managed Instance and Azure SQL Database. Now let's go ahead and see each one of them. Let's talk about each one of them and see the differences between them. Let's talk about SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine, which is infrastructure as a service. So basically, it's the same SQL Server like you have on your own virtual machine. But here, your SQL Server will be hosted on the Azure virtual machine. It's the Azure infrastructure. But what is the difference between both of them? Yes, there is a difference because if you are on-prem, if you are older versions of SQL Server, those are not supported because the support is gone for the older versions like SQL Server 2008 if you are on your own virtual machine. But if you move your older version of SQL servers to the Azure VM, you can get that extended support until you move to the higher um, different places like SQL managed instance. Until you move to the different deployment options, you can get that upgrades. You can get that extended support from the Azure. And similar to the SQL Server on your own virtual machine, the way that you connect to your operating system, the way you use all the features are exactly the same when you have your SQL Server on Azure VM. The automated backups happens when you are on Azure virtual machine, but that one you are going to take care when you're on-prem on your own virtual machine. So automated backups and the security patches are taken care by Microsoft. And of course, there is a support for the older versions once you move. And you can deploy this particular option in two ways. You can manually go ahead and create your own virtual machine, and then on the top of it, you can go ahead and create your SQL Server on the top of it. But you can also um, use images. They are the pre-installed packages readily available so that with few clicks, you can go ahead and create virtual machine. On the top of it, SQL Server will be created for you. So that is like an automated process. But in scale, if you wanted to do multiple um, systems, if you want to build multiple systems, there are other like Bicep, Terraform. Those are the platforms that are available to do it in scale. But that is out of scope for this session because that is a different subject, that is a different tools that you can use to do. So this particular session is like an overview and basic things from the DBA perspective. If you use images to create those, you'll get an extension, IaaS extension, which is infrastructure as a service extension. Basically, what that extension do is it will unlock certain features when you are on Azure virtual machine. If you do it manually, right, you need to manually go ahead and install this extension. But when you come to the SQL managed instance, the difference between SQL Server on Azure VM and SQL managed instances, here at the managed instance, you do not have access to the operating system. If you just wanted to worry about the instance only, if you want to use the instance level feature, you do not want to worry about the operating system and control of it, you do not need it, then SQL managed instance is right for you. Most of the companies like lift and shift, it's easy to go ahead and be in the SQL managed instance, but you cannot access operating system here. But you have complete control over your instance-wide capabilities. Like if you want SQL agent, DB mail, link services, link servers, service broker. If you still want to use them, you do not want to change much of the things from the SQL server and from the application side, you can directly lift and shift to SQL managed instance. But if you go to the Azure SQL database, all you get is a database. You will not get an operating system and you'll not get an instance, but you can get a simple database like in the full recovery model. And basically the SLA, the service level agreement, is high, 99.995%, which is like there is negligible amount of downtime. And you do not have to worry about operating system, right? No, you do not need any instance capabilities. If you wanted to build a new Azure systems, then you can go ahead and create Azure SQL database. Let's compare some of the features between Azure SQL database and Azure SQL managed instance. The change data capture is not there in Azure SQL database, but it's there in managed instance. The common language runtime is also not available in Azure SQL database. Cross database three name queries like database name dot schema dot table, those kind of things you cannot do in Azure SQL database. Cross database transaction is like a feature for the Azure SQL database. It's not a disadvantage, but if you want to do the cross database transactions, you have elastic queries, something you can go ahead and look into it. Database mail, resource governor, these two things are server level things, like instance level things, which are not available in Azure SQL database, but it's there in Azure SQL managed instance. But as you do not have SQL Server agent on Azure SQL database, you can go ahead and run your jobs by using the PowerShell. You can create the tasks, like you create the task on the operating system, right? Schedule task. There are certain ways you can go ahead and create your tasks by using PowerShell in Azure SQL database. Automatic tuning is a advantage that you can take when you are in Azure SQL database. So basically, you can pull up a report and you can say, okay, go ahead and do it. Like go ahead and tune the queries, tune the indexes, like it will go ahead and automatically drop the unused indexes. But be careful with this option, because it might also, your queries might run only specific times in any year and it might get pulled up into the report. So what are my responsibilities as a Cloud DBA? The cost optimization is the number one thing that we have to know as a Cloud DBA. Like if you tune the queries on on-prem databases, you already bought the hardware and stuff. Even though you tune the queries, you might not be recognized quickly, but that's not the case when you are in Azure. If you tune the queries, you can easily scale up and scale down the resources, because once your queries run faster, if they are performing well, you do not have to go ahead and scale up and scale up and scale up. You can, at certain point, you can scale down based upon how much of resources you are taking. You might not need that much of resources. So when you scale down, in the enterprise level, in your company level, it might save a lot of money, which can be advantage for you as a Cloud DBA, because there are a lot of chances for you to be recognized by the department. That's the first one. You need to know how much does it cost and everything. Database level, if you see, monitoring the performance is still going to be there, setting up the alerts, fixing any outages, automating the task. You need to create the task once you are in cloud. Migrations, that's one of our job. We are still are going to move our databases to Azure. We are the ones who are going to plan that the project, how to plan it, right? And know the service tires, compute tires, how much each of one will cost, what are the differences between each of those deployment options. Everything you are going to be responsible. Management is looking up for you for those answers. Leaving some of the repetitive tasks like upgrades, like I said, patches, and automated backups. You do not have to buy infrastructure or hardware if you are in Azure SQL database or a managed instance. And automatic tuning is especially available in Azure SQL database, which is an advantage. But even though you have these options, right, the automatic plan corrections by query store feature or automatic index tuning, you are still going to need how the things are moving. Like once the data is being inserted, how your execution plans are acting, whether the index tuning is working properly. Like you have automatic index tuning, so should I stop because they are pulling up some of the indexes that are being used at certain times in the year? You are still going to be needed to monitor those things. So let's talk about the cost, because cost is very important thing. That anything you touch in Azure, any service you touch, it has cost associated with it. So knowing about how much each of these cost, what are the service tiers and what are the compute tiers, what is the difference between them, it's very important to know. So basically there are two purchasing models. DTU model is the oldest model when they when they initially introduced the Azure SQL database, that's the model they have. So basically, DTU, database transaction unit, it means, and it is a bundle of resources together. You cannot separate between the resources. Like if you are using 5 DTU, let's take an example. So in that 5 DTU, you have certain compute and the storage like CPU, memory, and IO combined together. You cannot say, okay, I wanted to use this much of IO, but I do not need the other resources. You cannot say that. You still have to pay for the entire DTU. And you have 3 tiers in it: basic, standard, and premium. And if you are on the basic, performance not be good. If you move and scale up, the performance might be improved because the amount of money will also be improved by using DTU. vCore model, the advantage that you have with the vCore model is you can separate out the resources, the compute and the storage separately, you can pay for them. You can scale up and scale down as per your needs. vCore model is the most recommended model. And if you are building Azure managed instance, the only option that you have to choose is vCore model. You cannot choose DTU for managed instance. But if you wanted to move to Azure SQL database, you can go ahead and choose DTU model. And by having the vCore model, there are certain advantages that you can take. You can go ahead and you can reserve certain resources ahead of time. You can pay for them ahead of time so that you can get some discount on it up till 40%, as well as if you are using vCore model, you have this Azure hybrid benefit, meaning like if you have any on-prem servers, you have licenses with them, you can go ahead and trade off those licenses and get some discount once you move to Azure. And that's some of the differences between DTU and vCore. But in the vCore model, we have general purpose, hyperscale, and business critical, which we are going to see in the coming slide. So let's talk about general purpose. General purpose is available generally for all of the businesses. It is the lowest budget model, lowest cost model. And by using the general purpose, all you get is a primary data, primary server, and you will not have any secondary standbys. So if you want to failover, right, anytime, while doing the failover, it might take some time to build up your secondary standby. And you, especially under the general purpose, you have 2 more options: compute tiers, 2 more compute tiers, which is serverless and provision, which we are going to talk about the coming slide. And by using the general purpose, you can use until 80 vCores and up till 4 terabyte of space. But if you wanted to go to a little bit of higher level, business critical is useful for your in-memory OLTP systems. If you have in-memory OLTP system, business critical is only the option for you. And you can transfer the read workloads to your readily available secondaries, because not like general purpose, here you have readily available secondaries. So you can easily transfer your read workloads to those secondaries, and very less latency when compared with general purpose. But as they add these additional features, the cost will also increase, and it can handle up till 128 vCores and handle up till 4 terabytes. Again, the space is the same between general purpose and business critical. But when it comes to the hyperscale, if your database is continuously growing, if you wanted to upgrade your database, right, up to more than 4 terabytes, then Azure SQL database is right for you, and it can store up till 100 terabytes. And um, and you'll get that point in time restores, because Microsoft has inbuilt algorithm where they will save the data in different layers of cache to restore the database whenever it needs as quickly as possible, because these are not small databases, these are big databases. So the latency, it should be load latency, it should be very quick. The SLA is high, 99.995%. So we do not have much time for the downtime here. It will be readily available by using that different layers of cache in memory. And there are 4 readable replicas available, and it can handle until 80 vCores. So basically all you need is a database. If you need a database, that's all you need. You just wanted to change the settings of the database. And if you feel like your new cloud application is going to be expanded very quickly, Azure SQL database is right for you. And you can think about hyperscale option as well. So underneath the general purpose, right? Only under the general purpose, you have two more different compute tiers, which is provision and serverless. Like when do you use provision? Like if you know of all the time, if your application is some or the other connections are connecting to your database, you have that flow, that connections all the time, then you choose provision under the general purpose. And once you choose the provision, no matter if you use the resources or not, once you choose it, the amount of resources that you choose, you have to pay for them, even though if you are not having some connections at certain point in times. But with serverless, you can go ahead and pause your database. Like if you know the workload, the time of your workloads, right? You know when the users will be connected, only certain period of time, like timesheet, let's take an example, they will be only connected from 2 to 3 days, like Friday to Monday afternoon. You can go ahead and pause the database the rest of the time so that you can save some money, because all you have to pay is for the storage, but you do not have to pay for resources because you are pausing the database. If you choose this option, right, um, the next time you run the database, if your users are connecting, the 1 or 2 connections will be failed because the database needs to warm up to get started because it's in the pause mode, right? But then the third connection, the second connection, will be active and running back again. You can choose that option. And once you choose the serverless option, you will be only charged per second basis. And you can go ahead and choose the minimum and maximum number of vCores that your database can use once it starts using it. But it won't cross that limit. It will only stay in between that number of vCores that you choose. Let's talk about a little bit of network security. As a DBA, of course, we have network guys to do that, but it's always good to know what is this private link, what is network, what is secure, what is not so secure. So there are 4 options in network security. Allow access to Azure services is the least secure ones. So basically, if it is so least, why did they created it, right? These are created for the development lower environments where you wanted to create your environments quickly and then start using them very quickly. And sometimes we build the servers and then we use them and then we drop them, right? In that certain scenarios, in those scenarios, we can use allow access to Azure services, because once you choose this, all the other services in the Azure can easily connect. But if you have an on-prem server, you cannot connect to allow Azure services. This first option, you cannot connect. You need to add that local IP address to connect if you are in this option. So if you are using firewalls, right, a little bit better options, just like you use the firewalls on your SQL servers, on your servers where your SQL servers are hosted, in the same way, you need to go ahead and create those firewall rules for all of the services that are connecting to your Azure SQL database, which is like really tough because sometimes we create dynamic IP addresses. It will become a hectic thing to do, which is also not so private here, because if you want to see, like if you do any lookup, you're still using the private access, you're still using public access. I'm sorry, I said private. I'm correcting myself. It's public IP address. So it's still connecting through the internet. But if you are using virtual network rules, which is more secure than firewall rules and a little bit less secure than the private link. So what happened here is the different networks that you have, all of these networks on Azure, virtual networks, they can connect together by using different technologies like network technologies, where they will be helpful to connect the different virtual networks on your Azure machine. And by using these network rules, right, you can you can easily, like, it is a little bit more secure because it will use private IP address of the Azure virtual machine. But when you see, when you wanted to look, it's still using, it still provides certain information to public, like region controlling certain kind of things. When you do the DNS, like when you check the hierarchy of it, it's still not that secure. But if you want to make sure your databases, your production is secure, using the private links, creating those um, creating those private links is like very useful, because when you use this, you will be disconnecting to the internet completely. Now all the public access will be lost. It is the most secure ones because it will create the private IP address within the specific virtual network. And even though if you do the DNS lookup now, you will not see any of the information publicly available. All you see is the private link information, and it will not show any of the other information. We are going to see that in our demo. Let's go ahead and create our virtual network. Again, as this is just a overview session to the beginner level of people, professionals, so that I use the Azure portal, which is easy to understand. Like if you are not familiar with Azure portal, once you open up the Azure portal, like if you can also create a free account here, and for 30 days you'll get around like $200 worth of credit, where you can go ahead and play around with all of these services. So go to Azure portal, search for virtual network if you wanted to create, enter. Again, I'm using screenshots because I felt this is like cleaner way of showing things, instead of me going ahead and doing the demo and then it's saying like, hey, this is not available, this is wrong, this is wrong. So I put everything like a screenshot just to make the flow correctly. So go ahead and press on the create. So once you press on the create, it will open up create virtual network. So any resource that you create, you have to place them under the resource group. Any services, you can create multiple resource group, but all these resources that you create have to be under any of these resource group. You have to provide the subscription, the resource group information, and the name of your virtual network, and which region you want to create this virtual network. Again, the region is very crucial. You need to place the region where you are from, because that will also depend the latencies. There will be very low latency if you choose the correct region. Create next. You need to provide the IP address. So for this virtual network, how many workspaces addresses you want to create? So you have to be very careful, because under this virtual network, if you wanted to create many resources and each of those resources will have IP address, building it in the beginning is very important, because if you continuously go ahead and you cross the border of these addresses that you are providing, it might not accept, because you have to be within that range of addresses to do that. And also add subnet name if you want. You can also provide the subnet address range here that you want to choose. I put it as default here. Go next. There are additional security when comes with the perspective of virtual network, like firewall and the other bastion host. These are additional security that is provided. I put them as default. Go to the tags. So tags are something like if you go to a store and if you wanted to buy any dress or shirt, you have those tags with how much of dollars or money it will cost, right? So by adding these tags, it will be easy for you. By naming these tags, when you go ahead and look into how much of each of these resources cost, it will be easy for the identification purposes. They do not perform any action by themselves, but these are just to identify how much they might cost at the end when you see those calculations. Review and create whatever you choose and create the virtual network. It will be created in a couple of minutes. Once your deployment is complete, go to resource. So right now you are seeing your virtual network. Let's go ahead and create our virtual machine on the top of this virtual network. Go search for the virtual machine. Once the blade opens up, right, virtual machine, go ahead and click on create. And again, you have to provide your subscription, your resource group, virtual name that you wanted to choose, and region, very important, and then availability options. And what kind of security type you wanted to create. I wanted to put it as default, which is standard. And the next is image. Once you go ahead and select the image, like I said, they are the pre-installed packages. With a single click, you can go ahead and create your virtual machine. Here, I wanted to just create a Windows server, not the SQL server on the top of it. I just wanted to create Windows server. So I choose Windows Server 2019 data center. And then the size of it, you can choose how much size you want, because as you go up, the Windows server will be performing well. If you are in the least mode, it's up to your preference. So I choose see all sizes. I would like to see all of the options that I have. So I choose, if you see the highlighted red color, it is like $7 something, but my virtual machine did not even start when I used that. So I upgraded it to general purpose B2S, which cost me $30.37. I did that and I created a virtual machine. I selected that, and then username, password you need to provide. That's a SQL authentication user ID and password that you have to provide. And do you want to choose the public inbound ports? I choose it as default none for now. Review and create. Go ahead and also go to the different tabs, the disks, different types of disk, like local redundant storage, what kind of storage you want. We are going to see those in our coming slides as well. So I put it as default again. Networking. So virtual network. Remember, we created the virtual network. So provide the virtual network name here and provided the subnet that you have created in your virtual network, which is by default it populated. Public IP address is also automatically populated. I put it as same. And then do you want to allow selected ports? So I selected on allow selected ports here. And how do you want to select the index? So how do you want to connect to this virtual machine? So HTTP and RDP session. By using the RDP, I can connect to this virtual machine. So I choose these two options. Review and create again. It will take a couple of minutes to create. After your deployment is complete, go to the resource to see your virtual machine. And right now, I would like to connect to my virtual machine, where go ahead and click on the connect once you open up the resource. And you need to go ahead and download the RDP file first. This is an additional step, right? If you do RDP in your on-prem servers, you get the direct application. When you do VPN, then connect to the VPN, you just directly connect to your virtual machine like servers. But here you need to download the RDP file. Once you connect, provide your IP, your login ID and password that you generated when you were creating this virtual machine. Once you click OK, you'll be able to connect to a virtual machine, which will just look like your Windows server, which is a Windows server, virtual machine, which install Windows on the top of it. And we created this in the network, in the virtual network that we created. Now let's go ahead and create Azure SQL database and then connect Azure SQL database from our virtual network, from our virtual machine that we created on virtual network. Go ahead and search on Azure SQL and then click on the SQL database. But this is the right time for me to show the other way to create the SQL virtual machines. You can go to the deployment options you have, and then you can choose different images where you can go ahead and create your virtual machine. On the top of it, you can create your SQL server, which is SQL server on the top of it. You can do that right side your screen. Those are the images. Now we wanted to create the SQL database. Again, you need to provide the subscription resource group, provide the database name. So while providing the database name, you need to follow certain rules. If you do not follow them, it will show you need to change the database name, right? And as you are only getting the database, there should be a way for you to connect to that database, right? If you wanted to connect using Management Studio, how do you connect? So for that reason, we will get a logical server that we can create for the Azure SQL database. So that is the way we can actually connect to the Azure SQL database. So let's go ahead and create that logical server by clicking create new. So basically, when you create this logical server, you definitely have to provide your SQL authentication login ID and password to create your Azure SQL database. Later, you can go ahead and add Active Directory users to it. But for creating the logical server, you definitely have to provide the SQL authentication ID and password. So provide the server name, logical server name that you wanted to create, provide the location, and then how do you want to use? Do you want to only use the authentication, SQL authentication, or use Active Directory, or use both of them? Most of the time we use both of them, but I put it as default, use SQL authentication currently, and um, go ahead and provide the admin login ID and password, confirm the password, and then go ahead and select the storage and compute, where you will go ahead and see all of the options that we have discussed in the previous slide. Do you remember the general purpose, business critical, and hyperscale service tiers? I would like to choose general purpose. Especially under the general purpose, we have provision and serverless, if you remember. So I do not, as this is my demo, I wanted to pause my database whenever I don't use it. So I choose serverless. So once you choose serverless, it will be only charging you per second basis. And you can go ahead and scale up and scale down your maximum number of vCores and minimum number of vCores. When your database is being used, it will only be scaling up and scaling down between those maximum number of vCores and minimum number of vCores you choose. And auto pause delay. So when do you want to auto pause your database? The default is 1 hour. So what that means is, like, if your database is unused for 1 hour after your usage, after hitting that 1 hour, it will go ahead and pause your database. And go ahead and choose the data max size. And would you like to make your database zone redundant? No, for now. Click apply. And then how do you want to store your backups? So basically we have three options. Locally redundant storage is like it will save the copies of the backups in the primary location where you created your database. The next option, zone redundant backup storage. Let's take an example. I am in Kentucky. I created this database. So it will create the backups, it will save the backups on this location where I created, but also it will save the backups asynchronously at different zones within the Kentucky, right? In the same region. If you choose zero redundant, you are saving the backup copies across the world in different locations. Click next. Networking. Do you want to add the current client IP address? Like, do you want to locally connect to this database? I choose no for now. You can create the private endpoints, but I will be creating it later. And go ahead and choose the connection policies. I just put it as default. Ashan, do we have time, or am I running out of time? If you can just let me know how many minutes I have left.
No, Deepthi, it's okay. You can continue.
Okay, thank you. So if you go to the security, there are latest features that they added. For example, Azure Defender for SQL. So what it does is, if you enable, it's not free service, by the way. You need to pay $15 per month per server. Once you enable it, it will actually go ahead and do the vulnerability assessments for you. Like if there is an suspicious activity going on, if you set this up, you'll get an alert saying with all the details to your email. So it is basically vulnerability assessment which is very useful if you're in Azure SQL database. So that one I choose not now because this is just my demo. Additional settings, like how do you want to create the database? Do you want to just create the name of the database but no data in it? Or do you want to get it from the backup copy? Or do you want to create a sample database? I would like to create an empty database, so I choose none. And collation. Collation, the one which you're seeing on the screen is the default collation. But if you wanted to change the collation by creating the database, while you create the database, that's the time you can go ahead and change it because later it is not possible. And maintenance window, by default, it is 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. You can go ahead and change that according to your needs as well. Tags, again, the tags are nothing but they will just give you the information when you are going to see how much each of the resources cost. They do not do the action by themselves. Review and create all of your options. Create, it will take a couple of minutes to create your database. Once your database is complete, if you see here, first it will create the logical server. On the top of it, it will create a database. Go to the resource. And once you open up the database, right, you will get the information of the logical server to connect to that database. So if you see right side your screen, the server name, that's the logical server, not the physical server where this database is hosted. It's just the way we connect to the database. That's it. Go and then copy the logical server name. Connect by using your virtual machine. Remember, we created the virtual network. In that virtual network, we created a virtual machine. Go ahead and open that virtual machine by downloading the RDP file, right? Connecting to that and then opening up your SQL server, providing the server name, logical server name, provide the login ID and password. By using the same ID and password that you created while creating the logical server, go ahead and do that. Hit on connect. Now, if you see here, it just looks like the SQL Server instance, right? But you do not have any database mail options or like SQL Server agent. You do not see. You have the logins available over there. If you observe, when I created the logical server, I created this login, Deepthi, and then I provided. And that's how I connected to the database, right? So that's how I gave the login ID. But to add the users to your database, to give the permissions, you can go ahead and give them directly to the database. Under the same logical server, you can go ahead and create multiple databases as well. So that doesn't mean that this is single instance and you have all of these instances were hosted on this server. It's not like that. It's just a logical server. The databases, we do not know where they are hosted originally. So let's see the difference between that network, right? We have seen 4 different types of network security. Let's see how they act and how they show the information once you choose those, right? Allow access to Azure services and firewall rules. These both are like low. They are not so secure. So let's see how we will be looking at them. What kind of information they will show. Once you connect to the logical SQL server that you created, and those are the databases, right? Those are the databases that we have created. We just created one. But at the time I created this demo, I had one more databases, DBA nuggets. And here, go to the firewall and virtual networks. In that, place allow Azure services and resource to access the server. That's the first one. That's the first network security option that we talked about, least secure. Select yes on that one and add the current IP address on the second square, the highlighted one, add the current IP address, which will be adding my current IP address. Now go ahead from your virtual machine that you connected, go ahead and do NS lookup on this server, right? It will provide the information. If you observe here, right, it will provide the control ring information, which we do not want to show up, and it will be showing up the public IP address information and the database name information, all of that. If you see here, data slice information, database name, data server, the database connection information, the logical server name, those kind of information is visible, which is not a good thing to do when you are in production. Now, if you go ahead and connect to your Azure SQL database from your virtual machine that you created, correct? And go ahead and do this select client net address from where I am connecting and see the connection information. It will provide you that client net address where you are connecting from, the exact address as is, which is not secure. But let's talk about the next two options, which are virtual network rules and private endpoint. Even though you put option allow Azure services to access the server as no and remove the public local current IP address delete. Now, after doing that, if you do the NS lookup one more time, it will still show you the, if you observe here, right, the control ring information and the location East US, the information is still showing up. And the DGT test server, that information is still showing up, which is not secure. But with the private link, if you go ahead and choose the private link, you can go ahead and create the private endpoint. Once you click on private link, it will show this window. Go ahead and click on create private endpoint. Very easy to create one. Again, subscription information, you have to provide resource group, you have to provide a name of the private endpoint that you wanted to give. I put DBA Nuggets private endpoint. Region, again, the region should be same, like where you are from. Next. So resource, when you click on resource, again, subscription information and underneath the resource, we are creating this private endpoint on the server, right? On the SQL server. So Microsoft SQL _ servers, choose that and provide the resource. Like we are creating in the logical server that we created, provided that server and target sub resource. Once you provide the resource, it will automatically pop the target sub resource underneath it, which is SQL Server. Underneath the configuration, choose your virtual network, which is very important because we are creating this private endpoint on our virtual network connecting to our database. So basically, we are providing private endpoint for our database. So provide the virtual network and provide the subnet. And then if you choose the private DNS integration, right, it will automatically create a DNS for you. If you read there, to connect privately with your private endpoint, you need a DNS record. But because that is secure, DNS record, we recommend that you integrate your private endpoint with the private DNS zone. So if you choose yes, right, it will automatically go ahead and create a private DNS zone for you. So I have chosen yes, and all of these options were automatically populated. And if you see here, the private DNS zone, you can see the private link.database.windows. That's the name the private DNS zone will be created. Review and create. Deployment in progress. It will go ahead and complete. Now go to the resource to see that's the private link, right? That's a private link that has been created on your virtual network, on your private logical server, right? If you see all of the information here on the location East US. Now you can go ahead and connect to your virtual machine. If you see your resources, you can find your virtual machine that you created. Click on that and then download the RDP and connect to your virtual machine. And then now you do the same thing again. Select client net address from sysdmdb connections. Now you see a completely different address here, client net address. That's a private address. It's not public anymore. Now, if you see here you see the private client net address is 10.0.05, but here if you see it's 0.6. So it won't show you the exact net. It will show you somewhere in the net private link, private address, complete private address within that subnet. And if you do the NS lookup on this database again, you can see the information, right? If you see here, the private link information is shown. You do not know that information. So it's secure. The internet connection will be completely gone and it's completely private. Let's talk a little bit about role-based access control. So when you talk about built-in roles that we have in Azure, they just say like what a user can do and can't do. The owner, we have main built-in roles, owner, contributor, reader. Owner, as the name itself says, they do everything. They have the ability to do everything like read, modify, and assign. Contributor, on the other hand, they can read and modify, but they cannot assign other people as the contributors. Reader will just have the ability to only read. And if you see these built-in roles, correct? If you have a user as a contributor role for a resource, but underneath that particular resource, like if you gave a user contributor role for a resource group and you want the same user to be just a reader underneath that resource group, it doesn't work that way. If you have given these permissions are like inherited, once you have given in the top most level, they are automatically inherited underneath that resource group. If you have any other resources, they are automatically inheriting those permissions. Now, just to show you how it will work, access control, go to your logical server that you build, go to the access control, right? Click on that. And then let's go ahead and see how to add a role assignment. Click on add a role assignment. And then in that, you can see these role-based access control that we have discussed. The built-in roles, owner, contributor, reader. There are also other roles, but we are mainly focusing on the main roles here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and click on contributor. I wanted to add a person as a contributor. So click on contributor, click on next, and then add the members. Whom do you want to add? Select. You want to add a user group or service principal or managed identity. I wanted to use user. Go ahead and search for the user in that domain, right? So in your domain, so go ahead and do that. Add that person and then click on next. We are adding him as a contributor. And what is the scope of him that he can have access to? All the resource that you provided him, he will be the contributor for that particular resource. And if you see the scope here, right, the scope, he can be the contributor for that particular server, DG test server. And the member information will be provided there. Please review and assign, which will go ahead and review and assign him as a contributor for this particular resource. Let's talk a little bit about intelligent performance, which is like force plan information, create index. This force plan information will actually use the query store. It will basically go ahead and continuously monitor for the execution plans, and it will always force the last good plan automatically for you. You don't have to manually go ahead and force the plans. That's the force plan you have. If you go to the AdventureWorks database and go to the automatic tuning, left side your screen, it will open up a blade of these three options for you. And these are available especially under the Azure SQL database. And if you wanted to create the index, drop index, you can go ahead and play with these things. But be careful, right? Because it might also pull up some of the indexes only if you run certain times in a year, those queries. So what we have seen in this session is we have gone from all over to the overview of Azure deployment options. What are the deployment options we have? What are the compute tiers? What are the service tiers? service tiers, compute tiers, and what are the purchasing models we have, DTU and vCore model we have, what's the difference between them, what are the service tier especially available underneath the vCore model, which is recommended. We have seen how to see the differences between each of the network security options we have. We have seen the virtual network, we have built the virtual network, and in that network we have placed virtual machine, and we have created an Azure SQL database, and we have connected to that Azure SQL database by using the logical server that we have built while creating the Azure SQL database. And we have login, we have connected to that database by using the virtual machine that we built within that virtual network. We have seen how to connect to the database, and we have also seen RBAC roles. What are the main roles we have? How to add a user to those roles, and how those roles will be inherited one by one, right? And then we have seen all of this information. Now you know all of this information, but what are certain tools? Because even before migrating, we need to know some information of like what it might cost to move to Azure, right? Because you cannot just, without knowing all of this information, we cannot directly move to Azure. You need to plan that information ahead of time. So what are certain tools that are available? Azure Total Cost of Ownership Calculator is available for free. If you go ahead and search in Google Azure TCO, it will open up a tool for you where you can go ahead and estimate the amount of cost that that you need to pay before moving to Azure. And as you know, the data migration assistant, you might already have known previously we have upgrade advisor for the older versions of SQL Server, but for the newer versions, we have data migration assistant, where you can go ahead and check for any compatibility issues before moving to Azure. Along with that, you also have a SKU recommender, which will also use the data migration assistant. So what it does is it will capture your workload. Based upon your workload, it will give you the estimation, like the starting point for you to which one might be best, which deployment option might be best, which service tier might be best as a starting point. It doesn't have to be that way, but it will give you an idea which one will be best for you moving forward. And SQL Azure Migration Wizard is one wizard that you can use. Azure Database Migration Services is not a free service. You have to pay for this service, but it is useful during the migrations as well. The key takeaways in this session are like our DBA job roles are not going to go away. Like you have seen different things in Azure by using the Azure portal. We still are going to take care of the security. We still need to support the users' applications. We still going to performance tune the queries. We're still going to performance tune as well as monitoring, creating tasks, automating the task. All of these jobs that we already have done, you do not have to forget those tasks. We still are going to need them. It's like our databases are on a different machine, but the way we support the databases is still going to be the same. It's easy to learn. Like there is no coding right here in this session. If you see, it's easy to get started. You do not have to be a developer or a DBA to get started with Azure. If you see everything from the top view, it will be overwhelming because there are several resources. I felt overwhelmed by looking all of this. But if you take that first step, going ahead and learning the Azure fundamentals from the beginning, in few months you can go ahead and take that AZ 900, DP 300, because if you see online for the jobs related to Azure engineer, and then any of these job opportunities you have, they clearly mention one of the job requirements are to have those certifications, because that will prove them like, okay, he genuinely know the information. So it is very useful to take the certification, start your journey right from here, because in the upcoming years, more and more companies are planning to move to Azure. And if you start your journey from here, you will be in a better place to help your companies to move to Azure and then do your job as you already know what's going on in Azure, right? And as you have this intelligent performance, as it saves a lot of money and less maintenance, companies are definitely looking forward to move to Azure because, again, at the end, money matters, right? If they save a lot of money, they do not have to worry about hardware and maintenance point of view. It's easy to maintain, save a lot of money and high performance. Definitely, the companies are going to move into it. And if you wanted to get all of those resources that I put together, and Microsoft have these virtual training going on throughout the year, you can just go ahead and look into that website. Go ahead and look into this website. Scan with your phone to take that to the website where I provided all the resources. Just flag that page so that you can go ahead and select on those virtual trainings and then go ahead and look into it. Once you complete the training, right, you can take it in any time that you are available. I think it will be like for a week or so. By the end of the training, you'll get a certification coupon code where you can go ahead and take the certifications for free, which is 100% discount, like which is cool, right? You can take for free. Basically, those certifications are like fundamental part, like fundamentals of Azure SQL database or fundamentals of artificial intelligence. Those kind of certifications you can take and start from there. Like next, take DP 300 exam and start your learning. Keep on learning because technology is moving very fast. If we are not coping up with those fastness, it will be trouble for us in the future. So I just started. I'm not an expert. I'm just in like beginning level of my learning. But I'm looking forward to the future of doing more learnings. I followed these resources from Microsoft Docs to prepare my presentation. And all the best to the future Cloud DBAs. And I would like to thank you one more time, Ashan, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And if you would like to contact at DBA Nuggets is my user ID. It will be an honor to get in touch with you. And if you wanted to know more about like what I'm presenting in the future, either contact me on LinkedIn or follow me on uh, Twitter or follow my blog. In blog, I need to update the information, but I did not do it now. Until now, I have to do it in the future at least. But thank you so much, Ashan, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much, Deepthi. It's a simply wonderful session that I think, and it's a complete package for a beginner to start his
Yeah,
journey
yeah, yeah.
as Cloud DBA. I think you need to prepare for more session on that,
Right.
and it will
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
more helpful
definitely.
for the audience. And
Great.
simply, thank you very much for your
Thank
session.
you. And I'll
Actually,
be
I
looking forward to
personally
present
enjoyed it
more.
much.
Thank you. I'll be looking forward to present more in your user group as far as it is virtual, right? I cannot travel with all these
Right.
statuses and then H1Bs, visa status, and then if you keep virtual, like it will be an honor all the time because I love learning at the same time presenting. It will I will definitely be available whenever you need me. Just shout out like Deepthi, are you available? I'll just let you know with the new sessions.
Thank you very much, Deepthi. Hope in
Thank you.
2022 we will
Yeah.
manage more session with you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Sure.
much also for your time and effort.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. So do you have any questions for me?
Till now, we don't have any question. I
Okay.
think few questions are there, but in your uh, session, you have answered those questions.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
Um,
Thank you so much.
Deepthi, I
Is there
have one
anyone?
question. Can I
Yeah.
talk?
Definitely.
Hi,
Yeah,
Deepthi.
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much on that. And
Thank you.
I've just canceled my traveling plan, and the session was very worthy. And thank you so much, Deepthi, on
Thank
that.
you.
So my question is like, there is a differences between the creating a VM with SQL Server 2016 image and then SQL VM. What I observed so far, right? So there is an article from the Microsoft,
Mm,
and for the licensing price model, which
mm,
is available only on the SQL VM, not in the VM which you create a SQL Server 2016 image. I also
right.
noticed that in my present architecture, I have there are three DB servers. Okay.
Mm,
So one is a primary, secondary, and the DR server, and all are added in the AG group. And then so each servers, right? So we are paying $5,000, and we are paying money for each year. So almost three servers we are paying $15,000. And the pricing model, right? For the recently I had article from the Microsoft which says if you have if you are using the DR server, right? So you need to pay $5,000. You have to pay only something they mentioned. I'm not able to recall. It's a $200 or $300. So is there any difference between creating a SQL? Creating a VM with SQL Server 2016 image and then SQL VM. Have you noticed any so far, Deepthi?
You mean if you do it separately or if you do it at the same time by using the image?
That's
Is that
correct,
the
Deepthi.
question?
Yeah. So what you have shown is it's called a SQL VM deployment. So when you go for the
Right.
SQL VM
Oh, no,
deployment,
actually, if you observe here, I did not create the SQL VM. I did not do the, you mean the managed instance, right?
not the managed instance. So if you go to your portal, right, you go to the VM virtual machines, right? So in the virtual machines, you created one server, right?
Azure SQL database, not the
Windows server.
server. I
No. When
created the
you
virtual machine, which is a
correct.
Windows server.
Correct,
So
correct. Instead
in
of
that,
Windows Server, yeah. Instead of Windows Server, you select the SQL Server image 2016, and that one, and another one is SQL VM. So SQL VM is different, and creating a VM with SQL Server 2016 images both are different. Okay, but what I noticed, the pricing model, the pricing model. Sorry, not pricing model, licensing model. So the licensing model is available only on SQL VM. So there is a screen called, right. So
so
SQL deployment.
what do you mean by SQL VM? Will that automatically create a Windows VM on virtual machine?
Dipti, can I say something?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Thank you very much. One thing is, whenever you are creating a VM, you did not say you have on-premise license of SQL Server, and you are going to install a VM. You are taking a VM, and after that, you can install VM using that on-prem license. Whenever you are going to take a SQL VM, it will be the SQL Server is already pre-installed on that VM. And
Right.
whenever you are going to configure it, he will ask you, do you have any license or not? This is the things that
The
actually happening.
on-prem license, like, is it on?
If you
Are
if
they
you have
asking for the
if you
on-prem?
have on-prem license and you did not like to purchase any other license for your VM, then you can create a VM simple window or simple using OS Windows, and you can use your on-prem license uh, to install the SQL Server.
So it doesn't cost
This is
anything,
for the
right?
VM context, and SQL VM is that this VM image is already installed. Whenever you are using this VM, then SQL Server is already pre-installed, and you need not to install any SQL Server.
You do not have to install any Windows server,
No,
right?
you need not to install. It will be pre-installed.
Oh, okay. So which deployment option do the second one will come? Which
Deepthi,
deployment
I just
option?
need the article name, Deepthi. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
please,
don't
please,
want to right,
because
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 I'm closely
I'm not an expert at this as well. You know,
okay,
I'm
okay,
also
fine.
learning from.
I'm just closely, following on the LinkedIn. So I just pinged the article on
Oh,
that.
thank you. Where is that? I didn't. Where is the article? I didn't get it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just pinged on the
you.
LinkedIn. Yeah, I pinged on the LinkedIn.
Yeah. Please do it here
Sure.
as well because other attendees also will.
Yeah, fine. I'll just ping here in the chat also. It's a very good
Sure.
article. So
Oh,
you
that's.
can save some, if you have a DR servers, you can save some licensing cost.
Thank you so much for sharing that information.
And it was a good session on the
Venkatesan, right?
especially on the security.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's me, Santosh. Yeah, Santosh.
Santosh. Thank
It
you,
was very
Santosh.
good on the security part, especially on the private internet subnet, which I was not aware of that. Dipti. Thank you so much, Dipti.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Thank you. My pleasure.
And the person who is organizing, thank you so much for taking deep into the session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Those are such a kind words. I really appreciate it. And like I am presenting on different sessions. My future, like in the coming up future, I am also presenting more. So I usually do publicize on Twitter. So if you like to contact me, anything is fine, like LinkedIn or Twitter. It would be an honor to touch with you, Santosh, and the others. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
I
you.
mean, Deepthi, I mean, can you share this recorded session? That will be helpful to recall
Oh
the
yeah,
certain.
Ashan have
Uh,
that info.
Santosh, can you please share your email address so that I can share our YouTube channel with you so
Yeah, yeah.
that you
I'll
can
just ping in the chat group chat itself.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and have a good
Thank
day,
you so
all.
much. Have a nice weekend. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for your presence in the session, and we are expecting that this session will very much helpful for your career and as well as your to increase your skill metrics. We regularly arrange meetup session on each month in a Saturday, and I would like to invite you on our next session on 1st January. That will be on the developer track. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye.